Hey guys, welcome back to Behind the Tech. I'm with Ben here, and we have so much to talk about today, from AI bubbles to AI browsers and AI data centers. What's going to happen as experts say that the AI bubble is about to burst, and where's the money going?
Well, you've been traveling and I've been coding, so
yeah.
We've got a lot of in between.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of stuff that we've been doing in between as well.
Yeah.
So maybe you can also give updates on how Big Vault is going and new features or whatever. But
okay.
I think first off, I guess we talk about the AI money. As we both know, there's so much money going into AI right now. Like,
I'm trying to get a piece of that. Yeah.
I was sending you like some statistics, right? In 2025 alone, AI investments were expected to surpass over $400 billion. There's a lot of money rushing in, and Morgan Stanley predicted that by 2028, about 2.8 trillion will be invested in AI, while McKinsey says 6.7 trillion will be invested in AI within that same period. So everyone is trying to put money into AI as fast as possible and as much as possible, mostly in AI data centers and all the chip production, that type of stuff.
It's all the infrastructure.
Yeah, all the infrastructure. Some on apps, but I think less now than in the initial few months of 2025, because they've been seeing that a lot of these smaller apps and startups are getting eaten by the bigger guys with, I would say OpenAI and XAI and all these guys.
Well, with the startup app, they're not trying to do the same things as OpenAI. But what you're saying, you're actually, that's a, what is it, when you forward predict something in a book? Foreshadowing. Yeah, you're foreshadowing a really key point.
Yeah.
But these small apps that are, they're not being taken over by the big things like Agentics and OpenAI and stuff like this. What it is that they are they're very platform specific dependencies. They're all built on top of really specific behavior of specific LLMs, and we saw that when the GPT-5 was released.
Yeah.
And without telling anybody, they said, well, of course everyone's going to use GPT-5, so without telling everybody, they cut off 3.5 and 4 at the same time, and everyone's apps that depended upon the specific behavior of 3.5 and 4 died. And there was this huge, it was like when Alderaan got blown up and, Ben Kenobi felt the death of the Force, and they had to turn it back on.
Yeah.
And that is what's going to happen to almost all the generative AI startups.
Because then you'll get to, if you depend on one form of, like one version of, let's say ChatGPT 3 or ChatGPT 4 too much, when they turn it off eventually, which they will as they develop to newer versions.
Yeah, they have to. They can't keep
then your app is obsolete, right?
Yeah.
So that's gonna definitely happen. And if you start a startup that is kind of a wrapper of a wrapper of a wrapper, how everyone was joking about, then it's going to become very obvious very soon that it's not going to be sustainable, it's not going to work.
Well, the same cowards who in the 70s and 80s were saying you can't get fired buying IBM are the same ones that said you can't get fired buying Microsoft. They're the same ones who are now saying, okay, we're going to use the biggest AIs, and so we're going to be safe. But in this century, we've seen two major examples of exactly why not only is that not the case, but it's guaranteed not to be the case. So in 2009, the startup scene in Singapore it was just now coming to being. There wasn't one in the rest of Southeast Asia, but they had one of the first tech conferences of startups, and like 70% of the startups that were there were something that was building on top of the Twitter API, because Twitter had released this awesome API and you could get all kinds of stats. I mean, they really revealed the inside behavior of what was going on. You could see people's details and all that. And because Twitter's trying to get market share.
Yeah.
Right? And so within a year, Twitter decided, hey, this guy's app is cool, this guy's app is cool. They subsumed those features into Twitter, broke the API for everybody else. Now it's a very minimalistic API. I mean, it's good for following your own stuff, but you really can't get the inside details anymore. And 100% of those apps, 100% of them went to zero. In 2011, 2012, Facebook was doing the same thing. You used to be able to build apps that connected into Facebook, got all access to the network, your friends, and all that kind of stuff. And people invested a lot of money because Facebook was trying to get market share. And they turned that off, and all those people got killed. And now people are building on top of these AIs, and they're paying, it's kind of expensive to pay these token fees and all that. But what most of these people don't realize is that they're not making a profit.
Yeah, they're
on some of these.
incentivizing you to.
They are subsidizing that with all this
Subsidizing.
amazing VC money. And this is all
Yeah.
this VC money that's coming into this big circle that you were talking about. I'm sure we will go into more detail later. And at some point in time, the VCs are going to say, hey, we kind of like to start seeing when you're going to do returns. And they're going to wash out a few of the companies, and there's going to be the number one guy and the number two guy, and then there's going to be everybody else in terms of LLM generative AIs. And then they're going to change the price structure, and they're going to break the APIs, and everybody who's dependent upon these external LLMs is going to die.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, because you said that that's happened before with Twitter and then Facebook, and everyone's using.
I mean, those are the most
say,
recent examples. It
Yeah.
happens with every proprietary platform that people invest in.
So anyone who has kind of like a ChatGPT plugin, or they call on that ChatGPT API, eventually at some point they're gonna, and if their whole app is based on that, they're gonna
If
get
their
taken
app
away.
depends on the specific behavior, and so if you find any AI startup or any AI app that says, and usually it's to prevent, it's usually their way of preventing hallucinations, which is something they can't fully do. But if you find any of them that said, we're fine tuning such and such thing, they've just signed their death warrant. They're doomed because they're dependent upon the very specific behavior of the way this one interprets things in an abstract, probabilistic manner.
Yeah.
And that is guaranteed to break. It cannot be reproduced on another LLM. Whereas if you use an LLM as a generic commodity, right? LLMs have this ability to do this kind of stuff, and and your prompts can work on a whole bunch of different LLMs, which 100% of our products do.
Yeah.
we can exchange out an LLM in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so if the LLM is better, we get the benefit of it. Or if we need to move from an external one because we've got privacy concerns to a locally hosted one, right? We can do that.
Yeah.
If your apps are built on that, those are going to be the only AI startup companies that are going to have a chance of succeeding.
Okay.
As the only ones. Everyone else is doomed from the beginning. And that's why Gartner released their paper that said 80% of AI POCs failed to make it as products, and MIT did one like a few weeks later that said 95%. Right? That is one of the reasons. Also, they can't, because they're so focused on the probabilistic LLM solutions. They put LLMs in places where it doesn't belong, and LLMs cannot go beyond a certain point. They can't scale, and they're incredibly expensive to use. That's the other reason why all these AI companies are failing.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyone who's in that space like that, they're doomed, and it's so obvious to look at them. And you can ask them. I can ask them questions in 2 minutes, and I can tell exactly the situation they're in.
Because one of the main topics we want to talk about today is definitely the AI bubble and all the different things that are being created now. Some AI slop that OpenAI is like churning out, like the Sora stuff, but also other things that I find is the beginning of the change of the internet. Like before we started recording, we were discussing a little bit about AI browsers. And of course, I think Atlas, the OpenAI browser, isn't the first one. There were smaller companies who were bringing that out. But I think the bigger companies are at the end of the day going to be the ones who benefit most from just like the AI browsers. Like I think Atlas is now one of the bigger players. Chrome is trying to implement their own Gemini thing into their browser, not really working. But yeah, I was telling you how I noticed that let's just use Atlas as the main example, right? Their browser pretty much looks like a ChatGPT browser, like a normal chat, with a side little smaller chat where you talk to the AI agent. You can tell it to book a restaurant for you, book your flights for you, do different things for you, or you could just ask questions and then it'll come up with all the search engine results.
Right.
Like that type of stuff. I was saying how my observation is that now websites for booking specifically will have to be redesigned and changed because the AI can't do a lot of the features that are designed for humans, right? We designed it for us to be able to scroll, to click here and look at this. But my experience was yesterday, the AI agent took 20 minutes to scroll between 1 to 10 and from 10 back to 1 because it can't get to 5, and it kept timing out, and eventually after 20 minutes of trying it did it, and then we got the booking. But a lot of these websites are not optimized for agents to operate yet. So what are your takes on that?
Yeah, well, so in terms of a use case, I think we're gonna the browser is a platform, and people are accessing it as applications that are external to the browser, so services, and mostly going through gateways like the Googles and all that kind of stuff. And first it was Yahoo, right? All the big ones came in through that. And in our previous talks, I've been saying, like, what do LLMs really do, and what do they do well? Well, they solve the human-computer interaction problem, right? And so that is a fantastic use case for an AI. So that's a real good use of what an LLM can do in terms of taking my request, interpreting that into something that's an actionable action to find out what you want to search for, go and perform these searches, and then be able to interpret the results to know what's useful for me and make it in a format that supports the context that I'm asking for, right? Whereas a manually built app cannot predict, it can only support a couple of fixed contexts. It can't support the context that the guy's making up as his own, because all of the decision making is on the far end. Whereas now with the AI, the decision making is now, the platform is now the browser, and that's where the gateway is. So that's a very good use case for LLMs. However, they're trying to navigate things that are built with the use case that assumes people are going to point and click interfaces, right? And so they do very poorly. That requires real-time, low latency navigation of a technology that was designed for humans and not computers, right? And that's why you get these timeouts and all this really poor, sloppy behavior. But is that the LLM's fault, or is it we're just the wrong tool for the job? We shouldn't have LLMs talking to web pages with HTML and CSS. And thank God, I've been looking forward for HTML and CSS to disappear for 20 years now. They're horrible, horrible platforms. So now that's going to start happening. So really, what you need a service that exposes itself in a manner that's conducive for an AI to consume, and that's what this MCP protocol that Anthropic put together is. Now, the MCP protocol is shit. It sucks ass. It's inexcusable. I mean, they should have done it in a RESTful service model. There's a lot of reasons why. Now we're getting geeky technical stuff, but it really, like, anybody who's ever built MCP services in anger that done really innovative things with them has discovered, it's a really poor protocol for doing this. But there's enough of the big LLMs have been trained to understand the MCP protocol. So all of our services are exposed to MCP protocols. And what's cool about them is, all you got to do is make the browser or the LLM aware that this exists. Okay, just like Google indexing a website, this browser will index and know that this MCP protocol service exists out there, which anybody can launch, right? So instead of building a booking website for my restaurant, I'll have this MCP service. And in fact, what will really happen is that my website will now call the MCP service. So I'll still have the human regular website, but it'll be talking to the same MCP service that the AIs will be.
So I don't think you've ever explained what an MCP is yet on this podcast. So maybe do a quick, what is an MCP? How does it work?
So it's a WebRPC API. So it's using HTTP protocol, which is what the web is based off of. But it's only using post commands for everything, which is...
What does that mean?
I don't know that we want to explain in that level of detail.
Like a little simple version.
so it means that so Roy Fielding is the guy who basically invented how HTTP works, and he invented this concept called RESTful protocol. And it deals with when you have a URI, everything in the URI is a noun. It's a resource, okay? And there are approximately, so you can do approximately 5 things, but you can create a resource, you can read or get a resource, you can update a resource, you can delete a resource, and you can also put, and there's a couple of other things you can do. But so there's only like 5 main verbs that you can act on all these. And some of the verbs make a change that is consistent. If you did that same verb multiple times to the same object, you would end up with the same result. So that's called idempotent. It means I can repeat this command safely across this distributed internet, and I don't have to worry if it got lost and I try it again. Some commands are not idempotent. In other words, if you repeat the command, you will change the state that's not repeatable. So you want to have as few of those as possible. And by doing this allows you to have these caching servers in between and ways of optimizing the way the whole internet works. WebRPC, so post is the most non-idempotent request that you could make in the HTTP protocol. WebRPC, 100% of all of its commands are posts. So just from how to get along well with others and the way the internet works, it's the least optimized possible method, and you can't make any assumptions about the behavior, and so you don't get assumptions that let you optimize and improve the experience for users and for the environment. So the most costly, most overhead, slowest possible way command you can do. So that's the problem with these RPC calls, and 100% of MCP calls are that way. So even if you're just asking to see something, and if you ask the same question, you would see the exact same thing. Because it's a post, it has to process it like it's the first time it ever saw it before, which is stupid, which is dumb. And it's like everything in AI has to burn cycles and waste money, it seems. And so the whole protocol is this way. So yeah, that's kind of what's wrong with that. But the concept, architecturally, is what is sort of correct. So an MCP service has an API that is the same API that all MCP services have. So once your browser knows that MCP service exists, it can call that, and it sort of advertises back and says, here are all the commands and capabilities I have. So it's basically, here's a directory of everything I can do. Here's the parameters you need to give me to do these things. Here's the structure of what I'll give you back if you ask me this way. And here's some sample prompts that are optimized to get you the best results for the standard ways we expect you to use this service. And so the LLM can ingest the results of that one call, and now it sort of knows what things this can do, and if something maps to that need, it will know exactly how to call that MCP, just like you went and scrolled to the right page and clicked the right button, but it's precise through an API rather than navigating things. Right? So if all of these web services are now AI agents like MCP things, they will be able to quickly navigate and behave faster than what you could find it on a web browser, which right now, as you see, it's orders of magnitude slower.
Yeah, it's much slower than us.
Until the infrastructure on the internet changes and web services change, it's going to be that way.
Do you think LLMs are the right technologies to be doing this type of stuff?
They're the right technologies to be interpreting it between the person and the computer, and the results between the computer and the person. They are not the right technology to be executing it. We still want deterministic systems to do that, because you still remember the reason why it's so slow is because you're making several requests to one or more LLMs for each little step. And again, like we've discussed previously, these are all probabilistic black boxes. You don't know why and how it makes this decision. You can infer it, you can guess, but it's a black box. And if there's ever any little error in the way it interpreted something, and then the result from step one is the input for step two, and now that error compounds, and then the error compounds again, and that's how hallucinations and really bad behavior come into being. And it's also like most of the decisions, if you're following the navigation as to how to click on and fill in a request to get an air travel reservation, are all very strict and deterministic.
Yeah, it's very straightforward, very deterministic. You're not guessing anything.
You're spending like 3 to 5 orders of magnitude more costly in terms of CPU cycles and memory usage and bandwidth that you could have done it if you just programmed it in a regular, straightforward, deterministic language. Now we're gonna big lab. And
what can Big Lab do?
Now we're going to talk about so that is exactly that's exactly our hybrid AI model, right? So when we look at all this fantastic stuff that's structured to be interpreted by LLMs, we actually discover and codify that into a fixed graph database model that's called an ontology. And that ontology is like a big white box. You can see all the relationships between things and how things work, so it can be fixed by a human. And it executes like at sea-level speeds. So it's super, super fast. Once you've discovered and built the ontology, right? Which discovering and building it requires a lot of AI. That's expensive. But once you build it, you can reuse it over and over and over again, just like compiling a program. And it's super fast. So what you should have is your inputs interpreted by an LLM, and then the LLM should map its inputs to your ontology. Now you can do really fast functions into the ontology, and then it's going to bring out results that are in a structure that the LLM can then reinterpret to the human. So you get the best of both worlds there. And this is inevitably how it must go. Now, why isn't it this way? Because
and how do we make it that way?
You make it that way just by deciding to do it.
Like a browser will have to decide to do that?
This is not any fantastic science. I mean, the thing that we do that's quite well, because we spent like 3 years working on this, and I've been doing ontologies for 35 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm an expert on that. and being able to discover the ontology in the most optimum way, that's a skill that sets us apart. But people can do lower level ontologies on their own and figure it out. They can even handwrite them if they want it for certain use cases. So that's not the blocker. The blocker is everyone is trying to justify these massive valuations, right? They're trying to, like, how can we justify putting $400 billion into this NVIDIA, GPU buy? Well, if I'm not using all that, and right now, admittedly, the demand is far greater than the supply, right? They can't keep up with it. So that justifies throwing more in. But it's because it's so wasteful for 99% of the way it's being used. If you switched to the hybrid model that I had, we'd have way more supply than we have demand. And that would completely destroy the valuations of all these companies.
That would burst the bubble.
Because everyone's seeing, okay, this growth level, it's going to keep going, right? No, it's not. And it's not for that reason. And it's not because also LLMs are running out of steam in terms of their ability to progress beyond where they are today, which the head of AI at Meta, and I'm forgetting his name again. Do you recall his name?
I don't remember his name. You've got his name many times.
Well,
put his name
up here.
His name
is so, I'm gonna have to meet the guy someday. That's the only way I'll remember his name. But him and Musk are the both guys who have said, LLMs are great, but LLMs can't do these other things. They can't really truly learn. When we talked about LLMs just being token predictors, you need exponential AI, and then you can go to the next level. And are NVIDIA chips
good enough for
the system to do that? Well, Musk doesn't seem to think so, because he's
he
already hired Samsung to make his next AI
Also, he's making
chips.
his own chips.
And that's what everyone's going to be doing. And if NVIDIA hasn't really announced that I've seen any intention to change from their core GPU-styled architecture. They're making cooler, better custom chips for AI, but they all seem, and I could be totally wrong on this, but from what I'm seeing, because I'm looking out for it, they're just optimizing the way you can use GPUs. They're not building a whole different style of chip.
And I think they just announced that instead of every 2 years they're bringing out a new chip, they're doing it every 1 year, which then that is worse for the AI industry. It's developing faster, but then every technology become obsolete faster as well.
Well, no, I mean, they support the same APIs, right? So you just plug it in, and now you're using less power to get more cycles, just like when you upgrade your computer chip in your computer. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
All the companies that are spending like billions, millions, they buy it this year, next year it's...
You're talking about the planned obsolescence problem. That's the nature of computing. And then they can resell those ones to other people for cheaper, and so it's just like if you wait 2 generations for your computer, you get the best bang for the buck, rather than somebody who has to have the latest computer, like all the Mac people.
New phone.
I don't know anybody like that. I mean, that's a fine thing. No, but what I'm talking about is architectural differences, right? Fundamental different ways of how you do AI inference. How you're doing this matrix math that's optimized for the memory bandwidth and all this kind of stuff. And NVIDIA is doing that, but they're doing it around the edges. They're still based off of the same premise and architecture that a GPU is the right chip. Now people are making completely custom chips that aren't just GPUs. They are AI inference chips. Grok did it already. That's GROQ, and there's several other companies doing that. I don't know if AMD is going to be doing something like that, but I know that Tesla and Musk have worked with Samsung engineers to, because they know what you need, because they've got the software solution, right? They know this is the model that we've approached for doing, not contextual, experiential AI, right? And what they want is they want to build a chip that reduces the impedance mismatch, right? So it's like, here's the mental model that I have about how this works, and you want the chip to physically be as close to that mental model as possible. Now, right now, nobody who's thinking AI when they're thinking abstraction is thinking floating point arithmetic multiplication matrices. That's not what they're thinking. But that is the way 100% of these work that we're doing. So there's a lot of reinterpretation in software and in physical gates and transistors to be able to map to the way the CPU works, and then the result to map it back to the abstractions that they need. That is all additional power, it's additional latency, it's overhead. And as close as you can make those models map, so you get rid of all this in-between nonsense, then that's going to be an optimal system. And also, I think, personally, I think we're going to have concurrency and parallel systems are now. This is finally going to allow parallel systems to be programmable and useful, which is something that we've been waiting for.
Parallel systems, as in like ontology and LLMs parallel, or what?
Yeah, they'll be using a lot of small parallel inference engines that communicate to each other at the hardware level, rather than having to come off of the CPU and do it at the software and be interpreted by the slower CPUs. Right? They'll be able to keep it closer to the metal, and do these higher level abstractions closer to the metal, rather than low level math, pull it to the CPU, do higher level abstractions, and then push it back and forth, back and forth. Right now, the limits of computation is not the speed of the processing. It's the speed of getting the content on the memory bus in and out of the GPU. That's 100% of the speed problem right now. And it's because you can only do low level math on the GPU. You can only do a few basic functions. You can do them in parallel, but they have to be the exact same function. And then moving all that content on and off is the slow part.
So I feel like based on all these observations about chips and processing and architecture, all the conversation around, hey, are we in a bubble? Hey, is this actually, all the investments, it's going between the few hands back into each other, feeding into this loop. So that's true. That's actually kind of what is happening behind the scenes.
There's a couple of things that are bubblish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when ChatGPT 3.5 came out, I was, and that's, and I think that was right around when NVIDIA was just going super crazy. That's right, because I think a couple of companies placed their huge orders for the GPUs, and it was just, all right, there's this infinite demand, and so we're going to throw infinite money at it. And it was very obvious, at that valuation is like, I just don't see how the investors who invested at that level are going to be able to get back profits. It's never going to be able to live up to that at some point in time, unless NVIDIA does some radical innovation, which big companies can almost never do, right? Intel has been a perfect example of that. That's how AMD's ate their lunch, because Intel just were cowards and and wouldn't revisit the way they were doing things. So, this is working for us. We can't touch this. Our investors won't like it. NVIDIA's going to see the same problem, and it's going to be very hard for them to be the next leader for the next level of AI. So they're stuck on the LLM. Here's how we do GPU level. They're optimizing it, and they're going to eke out everything they can based off of that architecture. But until they fundamentally create the new architecture, which somebody will do, and whoever does that and starts capitalizing on that, they're going to eat NVIDIA's lunch. So that's going to happen.
Is there a chance they will do?
There is a chance. There's always a chance, and it's not just a chance. It's like they're probably the most equipped logically to be able to do it. Just like Kodak invented the digital camera.
Yeah.
And then sunk it.
Yeah, okay.
Right? There's probably engineers. It may be it's a startup that comes out of NVIDIA engineers, said, this is crazy, why don't you let us do this? And they go do it on their own. That's how the whole Z80 and the 6809s and all this other kind of stuff came out to be. It's just that organizations ossify, and their CEOs get scared to upset their investors, because that's also how their bonuses are done. So they just have to live long enough to retire and fully vest, and then they move on, and that prevents innovation happening from these big companies. So that's why it's not going to happen with NVIDIA. Now, I am talking specifically about technology fundamentals. I am not talking about investing. I'm the worst.
Tech guys don't know how to invest. I think that's
not
like
an investor.
That's
I think
in
93, somebody was asking about Microsoft versus Borland. I go, oh man, Borland is like kicking Microsoft's ass, technology-wise, and this new compiler and all this other kind of stuff. And what I didn't realize is that Microsoft had just hired away every single one of the good compiler developers from Borland by offering them twice the pay and ripped Borland to shreds, because they didn't have the capital to defend themselves.
Yeah.
So that's how investment happens, right? That's not how a tech guy thinks. Oh yeah, this OS2 C++ compiler is the dog, man. No,
that's not how the money flows.
Go to zero. So no, I'm oblivious. I'm oblivious in terms of predicting how markets are going to behave.
Yeah.
But if you want to know technology fundamentals, I can speak to that part.
Yeah.
And so, sure, everyone's seen the chart where NVIDIA is now investing into their biggest customers. And you know, some of that is smart and healthy, because at the very least, that kind of extends the runway for them to be able to keep it up, right? But as you artificially hold something up that maybe isn't legitimate anymore, it means the collapse is going to be far more painful. But will it collapse?
Yeah, will it collapse? Because the question here is, how can the government, or like how can they even allow it to collapse? Because if you look at the S&P 500 and the whole U.S. stock market in general, the only companies that are holding up the stock market are the 10 titans, right? They're kind of the AI companies of the stock market. And I agree. I think we've seen this. Yeah, and strategy. Well, they're not in the S&P 500.
Didn't strategy get a lot accepted?
They didn't get accepted in S&P 500 yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was happening.
They're waiting for
Idiots.
December.
Jealous people. Okay.
Yeah, but you know, the only things that are actually doing anything in the stock market are technology based, right? The Bitcoin treasuries and the AI companies. Mostly the AI companies, because that's what the general public understands and is investing in. All the retail money that's being invested is actually also from the top 10 or like less than 10% of income. So only the rich people are investing as well. So if there is, and when there comes a crash, will they even let the crash happen for long? Or?
Well, okay. So, I mean, you know, let's just take the free market capitalist version of this, right? How much wealth is being created? Are we creating wealth or are we destroying wealth? That's the only thing that matters. If actual wealth is being created, then these valuations can be justified. And there is no question that this AI thing, this is a once in history occurrence. If AI pays out, everyone's assuming that AGI is a real thing. We've already had that discussion in our previous talks, right? It ain't a real thing in terms of
not LLMs.
Not on top of LLMs. It's not.
Yeah.
And
but
it's
maybe
going to be
Musk will do something.
It can be on a practical basis, right? So if we see Musk in a few years launch some of his androids on starships to Mars, to go land on Mars and start building the refueling station on Mars as a prelude to humans, then the AI impact revolution is real, because that means that all manual labor can be replaced with AI bots. So we'll know in a few years.
Not this AI slop, not Sora.
No.
That's not what the AGI
but
thing is.
That's the indicator as to which way it's going to go for me. If he can do that, then all right.
So do you think it's all just if Elon can do that? Is anyone else building towards the indicator of AGI?
Nobody.
No one is building towards the indicator.
Some people who talk about it, right? The head of AI, the head of Meta that I keep talking about. His name I keep forgetting. I'm so bad. I'm so terrible. Because he's a genius. I read all his stuff, and he influences me a lot. I don't know what the deal is.
So he's trying to build.
He's talking the right thing, but I don't know that Meta is letting him do it, because Meta, you know, they went off and hired all those people. Now they got all these big heads and personalities, and they're fighting. Is he going to be allowed to do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So the only person I see doing something, and doing something like physical, right? It's got to be physical. And that's what, this is the other thing about the AI revolution that I'm hoping to see, because, you know, I'm a independent music promoter and stuff. I just love live music, and the reason why I love live music is because, you know, somebody gets out there, they put themselves out there, and it's a real emotional impact. You don't find that with any of the AI music. No. None at all. You say, that's cool, that's neat. But there's no, it's not like
right away.
There's nothing, you know, you're never going to feel that in a live performance, you know, unless you're hyped up on drugs at a DJ thing, right? That's just the drugs talking.
Yeah.
That's not the real thing. And so I think the reaction is going to be the stronger appreciation for the humanity of humans. And that's going to be the more valuable thing on the internet. It's going to be the things that AI can consume and deal with, but AI is not going to be able to create, and people are going to be more responsive to the analog human things.
So you know how they always say that the pendulum always swings really far on the other side? Right now we're on the, you know, AI content, AI slop, AI everything. It's going to swing all the way back to, we want human-made content. Can you prove that this is human? And if it's human, we pay more, or something like that.
Well, you won't need to prove it.
You'll be able to tell.
People will know.
Yeah.
People will know. And if they can't, then you weren't that different. So what?
So it wasn't good enough or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't that impactful. Right?
Okay.
And, you know, people just underestimate what it means to be human, and that's where we are at. right? We're really dehumanizing everything and trying to distill it into its fundamental forms, like we can then rebuild it, make something, but we can't.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to do that probably in anybody's lifetime, if ever. But we can do a lot of manual labor things and a lot of really useful technical and dangerous things and hardworking things. The problem is it's going to make people soft.
Yeah.
But there's going to be that small contingent of people who want to do everything themselves, who go live on the land.
Mathy.
They'll say, yeah, I'm with him, man. We're going to go raise chickens. Way to go, Matt.
Yeah.
So yeah, my Boy Scout experience will pay off one day again. But then that leaves us to do higher order, more capable things, and it brings, it's just like, the poorest person in America has opportunities and a lifestyle and access to things that the richest kings in the Middle Ages had no comprehension about, could not deal with. We're doing that revolution again, and it's going to happen faster and more iteratively. And that's what these bots and the AIs are eventually going to do. So, can it happen? It can. When will it happen? Don't know. But it ain't happening with the LLMs. There will be signs.
And the signs will be physical.
And there may need to be some bubble bursting or some redirection of these
where the
these major companies,
going.
Right?
Yeah. Because another question that I wanted to ask you about the technology that's being developed and what that technology is going to look like. So when technology's bubbles burst, like similar to the .com bubble, when everything's .com, building internet things, and then it burst, and a lot of companies went down, and then the good ones stayed on, and then they revolutionized how we use the internet today, right? What are the technologies that will stay, or that you predict will be around after there's a reconsolidation, let's say? And what are the true benefits and life-transforming technologies that are coming out of this new AI wave? Because it's definitely not the AI videos, but what are the hidden training behind that anyways? Like, we see it as, okay, maybe it's just for advertising, but is it teaching the AI something new that can then be used for other transformative technologies?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is I try to do like a differential analysis, It's like, okay, because I lived through the .com bubble. I thought I was going to be impervious to it, and I avoided taking these massive signing bonuses to go out to Silicon Valley because I knew this is going to go to zero. And then the company I was working for was heavily invested in them, and they blew up anyway when that blew up. I still got screwed. I didn't get the signing bonus, but oh well. But back then, so many of those companies never had real revenue. They never demonstrated that anybody was willing to pay for what they were doing. They were 100% advertising based, and they were just offering the free stuff, right? So if you don't know what the product is because you can't pay for it, it's you, right? And
you are the product.
So this time around, people have showed, all right, we're actually willing to pay for this. Maybe not enough for them to be profitable with the current tech and the current power usage requirements and the cost of power, but they're actually seeing value, and they are buying these AI services as opposed to somebody else's non-AI services or whatever, or hiring people or whatever. So that's some good news about this one, right? It's not a bubble in that we're not creating any value, right? It may be a bubble in terms of the return on investment, right? Over exuberance, as Alan Greenspan used to say. But entrepreneurs are also supposed to be optimistic thinkers, and if we do achieve the possibilities, then these valuations will all be small and be more than justified. But we're definitely not going in the right direction on some things. So I think two areas. Anything that just deals with human-computer interaction problems. Okay, the LLMs are going to be able to map those out and deal with that. So discovering knowledge and presenting knowledge in different ways, learning, that's all going to really pay out. And that can do it with current technology. The self-driving car situation and the androids and all that kind of borders the two, right? That's going to be like the ultimate cool, and then the human-computer interaction is the bottom. This is where we are today, and so everything else is kind of like somewhere in between that.
Also kind of like the medical side, like all the people are saying all the research that's done for longevity, health span, and just medicine in general, it's AI is doing that, and that's what's
right. So my belief is that the thing that's going to come out that's going to impact companies the most, and there's going to be some, you're going to, I can talk about some things that will give you hints that this is happening.
okay.
And this is, and I built our whole AI our whole AI project suite and everything is built around this assumption. So this is my bias.
Yeah.
But all my money, where my mouth is, and hopefully some other people soon, is that we need these, being able to discover the ontologies about understanding your business process as a whole, both the content, the functionality, being able to prove that it is correct, it's complete and sound, right? And being able to do that rapidly, like really making it, like saving 90% of the cost, because that's what it took to get your data in the right place, the right thing, to understand it before you could perform the higher order functions. So that was really, 70 to 90% of everything that we spend in IT can be collapsed with ontologies and hybrid AIs. And so any organization, especially a company, when they have discovered their ontology and they're working in that context with like event-oriented architectures and stuff, and that's driving the business, and that's how, whether it's agents or humans, they're all interacting through events in the system, and they get this emergent behavior that allows them to reduce the time of their OODA loop, right? Yeah. That's going to make them more and more competitive. And the people who don't have this will be crushed. But your ontology and your processes and your content are super, super secret private stuff. And there ain't no way you're going to allow that content and these queries to go out to OpenAI or Agentic and all that. It's going to be on premise.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the most valuable IP asset of every organization. Their ontologies, their workflows, their event stores, and the things that they build around that. Mm-hmm. And being able to give fine-grained permission access to pieces of that, controlling who has access and what, because that's where all the intelligence and the full institutional knowledge and capabilities will be in this hybrid AI component. It's like, it's like the middle of the Death Star or whatever, and everything serves around this. It could be for good or evil, but this is what everything is going to come down to. And one of the indicators, it's not 100% of an indicator for this, but one of the indicators is you're going to start seeing IT organizations do a lot more migration from the cloud to on-premise. Because they're going to say, this is now too important. And also, by the way, the cloud's kind of expensive, and actually owning hardware.
And the security issues, I feel like people are now starting talking about, hacks, and when you have everything in another person's server, are you really trusting Anthropic or OpenAI or Meta are the right custody holders? Yeah.
And just look at the AWS situation. People put all their systems out on AWS, and what is security? Security is you got this thing of value, and you've got some attacker who wants it, and the idea is you spend a little bit of money here to protect it, and it creates an exponential cost to attack it. Yeah. That's how good security is. Because right now, if you crack into somebody's database on AWS or whatever, you've got access to a database. I mean, this is valuable and protected data, like people's social security numbers and all that kind of stuff. That's important. But you don't have the entire understanding of everything about this business, what it's ever done, what it's going to do, and how to do it.
Yeah. Because
it's all spread out and it's not even captured anywhere. When you have a full ontological understanding of it and it's in your AI, the value of this target just went way up. It's the same reason why companies like Strategy need to do some sort of zero knowledge proof for the proof of reserves, because if they ever revealed the actual addresses, even though it's almost impossible to ever crack a Bitcoin address given it, those will be the addresses that are attacked exclusive to all others, because the pot of gold is so huge that now there's a huge justification to spend a lot more money to attack it.
Yeah.
And so putting your ontology and all of your corporate capabilities in somebody else's warehouse is just going to be too attractive of a target, and people will spend the money because now the returns will be worth it to attack it, and you'll be destroyed. So you're going to have to bring that in-house. You're going to be protecting it with armed guards. It's going to look like every science fiction movie from the 80s and 90s with the big computer in there. That's what's going to happen.
So your conclusion is you think the most important innovation that's going to come out of this current wave is the the hybrid version, the importance of having your own data, kind of moving from cloud to
not just your data, your content, and the ontology describing what it is and how it works, right? Because it's your whole business processes. It's your whole business.
Yeah.
It's your whole business. We're distilling everything down into this hybrid AI, and it's just going to interact with other people's hybrid AIs. That's going to be business. That's the AI revolution.
Yeah.
And this is what our architecture is, and people aren't adopting it because it goes against the valuations of everything being GPU based.
Yeah.
So it's a conspiracy. Otherwise I'll be rich. So somebody write a check who believes that one.
Okay.
And we'll take it to the moon. With Elon, we'll take it to Mars.
Yeah, okay, awesome. I think that is it for the questions I have in terms of like today's topic of okay, AI investment, AI bubbles, and what's actually being built, what's going to last after the frenzy. I think next time we'll come back and talk a little bit more about other areas within AI development. Maybe before we end.
Well, I can throw in one other big technology impact that's going to happen, and everyone's viewing this as a downside thing, and it's really a super huge upside. And that's the cost of powering these data centers.
Oh yeah, energy.
Oh my God, you're like consuming all the energy and all kinds of people who are saying this are zero-sum idiot thinkers, and they piss me off because their thinking is what destroys civilization. We have two problems: population collapse, and we ain't building energy fast enough. 100% of all innovation and improvements in the length and quality of life come from the ability to spend energy like wild compared to what it used to be, right? In the 1800s, only rich people had candles at night because whales fat was so expensive. People have no idea what it costs to have light at night. And then we got electricity, right? And the light bulb.
The more energy that it takes to run the world, the more people will try to make more energy, and the cheaper the technology is going to be.
And when we start adopting nuclear power everywhere and see how safe it is, we could have... We don't need incremental amounts of energy.
Yeah.
We need orders of magnitude energy, where everyone would turn on their air conditioners and their GPUs and just leave them running all day long and not even think about it because it's so cheap, it's practically free. We must do this, and the energy demands of the AI compute centers, and oh, by the way, the energy demands of securing Bitcoin.
Yeah, they're going to push that.
Are going to subsidize this. They're going to make it viable. They're going to make it necessary. And everybody in the world will benefit from this.
Yeah.
This is the thing that will bring peace on Earth. It will literally, it will be
all the people
peace on Earth.
Who are like, oh my gosh, poverty in Africa, poverty in this, no, and electricity. There's going to be electricity because we're going to need to make so much electricity for these technologies, innovations, that it will trickle down.
And how do you justify putting energy creation in places that aren't next to large population centers? You mine Bitcoin.
Yeah.
There you go, and that has a payoff. So this is the biggest impact, I think, is just the creation of energy, because being able to have so much energy so cheap means you can do anything. If you're living in the middle of the desert, you can transform the landscape with enough energy to make it your oasis, create water out of the atmosphere, anything you want. This is also what's necessary, by the way, to get people to be able to live on Mars and the moon. We need lots of dense, super cheap energy. And it's why it's the one thing, if I was sitting down with Elon, it's the one thing I'd want to have a conversation with him. Like, okay, I get the solar idea,
how do you transform
but why haven't you gone nuclear? Why aren't you using molten salt reactors and pushing the investment into that? He's just gone on the solar binge, and that won't take us far enough. And he, as an engineer, knows this. So I'm still really wondering why he hasn't, why haven't you solved this problem, Elon? Because you solved all the other problems for humanity. This is the one. So I don't know if he knows somebody else is going to do it or what, but that's the one thing. Like, he hits all the right buttons for everything that's the most important for humanity, except for that one. I mean, he's picking second place, and first place is far better.
Already.
I don't know. Oh. But that's the, once you have the energy problem fixed, that also allows us to fix the population problem, because it becomes so cheap to live that now I can afford to have as many kids as I want. And right now, that's the biggest issue. People moving into the cities, it's too expensive to raise children. It's too much of a percentage of my life and my lifestyle that I've stopped doing it. And,
So hot take, you think that potentially because of this growth in AI innovation, AI data centers, Bitcoin mining, all this energy that people are saying, oh, it takes too much energy, is actually a good thing and will result into having more kids, more families, more population eventually, as it makes everything cheaper for us.
You imagine if we throw a few tens of billions of these dollars that are going into NVIDIA stock and stuff into molten salt reactors that are small, that can sit in neighborhoods and power the whole state, what impact that will be.
Yeah.
And it will be necessary to do that for these companies to continue. So that's the most optimistic lookout that I have.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's it for today's episode. It's about to go. And yeah, thank you so much, Ben. We'll be back next time. Bye.
Right on.